It's Monday! Hello everyone, I'm Jordan. This is Box Angle's Weekday Leadership Workshop series, where we take bite-sized leadership lessons, break them down, and hopefully become better people and leaders in the process. On Friday, we talked about leadership as ever-evolving, or leadership being very, very dynamic. Whether it's historically how we used to manage to how we're starting to manage now, constantly learning new information, improving leadership as a skill, to maybe the events on ground, something may happen there, and that'll change things, or maybe it's even new people or new procedures. Leadership is dynamic, it's ever-evolving, it's ever-changing. Now for Friday's assignment, we wanted you to talk, journal, think about, ponder how leadership has changed for you at some point, whether it was a new event or a new assignment, how it affected you, and how you became a better leader for it. Now, if you're feeling brave enough, go ahead and leave it in the comments and we can start a discussion around it. On to today's quote. It is the granddaddy of them all. It is probably my favorite way to think about leadership. Leadership is influence. John C. Maxwell. For my money, it doesn't get any more simple and basic than this. So, here we go. Act 1. You need others to be a leader. Calling leadership influence is about as simple and basic as it gets. One of the things I love about leadership is it's a team sport. It has to involve other people. Sometimes I think executives or people at the top of the organization can get a little lost and a little ego-driven, and they start to believe it becomes about themselves. But really, if you're not influencing, if you're not growing someone else, what are you doing? Are you actually leading them on? It's like the adage, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's there to hear it, to make a sound. Well, if you're in the middle of a forest and you don't have a group following you, you're not leading. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not growing and developing yourself as a leader. Personal development, of course, is obviously there. But you know what? In the end, you can build yourself as much as you possibly can, which you should be striving for continual self-improvement. But if improvement doesn't involve anyone else, you're not really a leader. Act 2. What type of influence are you going to be? Once we've accepted that leadership is influence, we have to decide what sort of influence are you going to be. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? One of the reasons why I also like calling it influence is because it doesn't require a position. So you can be brand new to an organization and you're influencing maybe the people around you if you work in a small team or in a shift, your coworkers. You don't have to have a position of authority to be an influencer, therefore a leader. But you have to decide, are you going to be a good influence or are you going to be a bad influence? No matter what, the actions you take are going to influence the people around you. Act 3, cultural influence versus personal influence. If you are brand new and entry level to an organization, when you first start out, you're really going to only have your personal influence. You're not going to have necessarily a title or a set of responsibilities if you're starting from the bottom. As you go higher in the organization, you're going to have the potential to have more cultural influence, but you're going to be able to affect people on an individual, have that personal influence a little bit less. Here's an example. Imagine you're working at a coffee house. It's your first time ever working. You just get hired. You start as a basic barista. Barista? Whatever. Person who pours coffee. You first start out there. Really, all the influence you're going to have as someone who's brand new and learning the job are the team, or is the team around you. Maybe 3 or 4 coworkers that are happening on that shift. A little bit longer, you get a little promotion, shift lead. So now, not only do you have that personal influence, but you have a position, you have a title, you have a role. So you can start to set the tone for how that shift is going to be. Hopefully it's in line with the supervisors and the structure that you've got going on, but now it starts to shift a little bit more. Yes, you're still going to be interacting with those individuals, but we're starting to see that shift now. You go from shift leader to maybe an assistant manager or manager of a store. So now all of a sudden, you're in charge or responsible for several shifts. Now, you're not going to be working 24/7. You're not going to be able to see every single employee, more likely than not. You're not going to be working with them day in or day out. But all of a sudden, you're starting to work on developing a culture, how you want the stores to be run, how you want your shift to be ran. So now you're starting to set culture. So maybe you still have those personal influence with your shift leaders because you're having regular meetings with them or whatnot. But now you have less of a personal interaction with every single person, and you're starting to work more on the top down, hey, here's how I want the entire store to go. From there, you might go up to, say, a regional manager. Now you're really looking at culture because you're trying to run several stores. Now, you're not going to be working day in, day out with, the daily worker that's there across, 8, 10 stores or however many be, or even the shift leads. Really, you're going to be working with managers and assistant manager on how you want all of these stores to run. Start climbing up that chain, maybe hit regional vice president or an executive. You start to get to that executive level. Now it's almost all about setting culture. Now it's almost all about setting that tone that you want, how you want things to be run. Your influences move from personal one-on-one to cultural. And this is where you can make huge differences, because you, as the tippy top of your organization, whether it's that CEO or an executive director, a band director, director of a nonprofit, it doesn't matter. Now you're setting culture for the organization. Now you're still influencing everybody downwards, but it's not that personal one-on-one. So we've got two levels. You've got that personal influence versus cultural influence. In addition to that, however, you still have to live that culture. This is where it gets back into the personal side of that influence. You can say you want the company ran a certain way, or your organization if it's not on the corporate side of things, your band, your dance company. You can say you want it run a certain way, but unless you're living that culture, no one's going to buy into you. They're going to see that you're telling people to do things, but not doing it yourself. And that doesn't build rapport, that doesn't build trust. It goes back to personal. So the people who are directly reporting, vice presidents, shift leads, store managers, it doesn't matter at this point. All the people reporting you are going to see that it's a little disingenuous. So, yes, you set corporate culture, but unless you're living that, those personal relationships won't see you supporting that and won't pass that culture on downstream. You must live your culture in order to have the best influence from the top of your organization to the bottom. So now on to today's assignment. I really want you to think critically about the organization you're in. And I'm actually going to read this one to help these videos get produced a little bit faster. So I want you to think about your current gig or the group or organization that you're serving right now. Who's the biggest influencer in your group, either formally or informally? So this could be position versus personal. Someone who has a title maybe versus someone who doesn't. Are they different? Is it two different people? Why is it two different? For those of you who are already directors at the top of your organization, start to apply these questions to yourself. Theoretically, you should be the biggest influencer of culture in your organization. But are you? It's a tough question to ask of yourself. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something you should be thinking about. So who sets culture? Do they set clear culture? Is it very obvious what success for that organization looks like? If you're the director, do you believe you are setting the clearest picture of what success looks like for your organization? Do you live, or do they live that culture? So do their actions reinforce their words? And then how do you fit into it if you're not the leader? How do you help move that culture forward? How are you currently trying to help make sure that success happens? And then maybe think about how you can do more to improve, or how you can do a better job of showing through actions how to improve that community culture. Because in the end, leadership is influence. So who influences your organization? How do you fit in? And how can you become more of an influencer in your organization, whether you hold a position or you don't? As always, you can find us at boxangle.com. You can check us out at facebook.com/boxanglebands. On Instagram, we're just at boxangle, super easy. If you want to, you can check us out on YouTube for both video series we got going on, both this leadership and the medical series. You can go to boxangle.com/YouTube, and that'll take you directly to the channel, so you can check out the other videos. And if you haven't already, check out Jenna's Medical Monday series. She's got a lot of really great information that pertains to performing arts. You can go to boxangle.com/medical Mondays. We'd love to see you support it.
And as always, thanks for stopping by. See you tomorrow.